My crazy mom falsely accused me of assault in public and recorded the incident and posted it online, so I took my revenge. But a year later, she's outside my house at 2 a.m., trying to break in and ruin me again. But this time I have an ace up my sleeve. Growing up, I had a younger sister who was 10 times cuter than me, loved eating food off the floor, and spent her pastime rubbing her butt against my leg. And that sister was my dog, Hazel. You see, my mom not only considered her as a miracle baby, but also made it very clear that she saw Hazel as much more deserving of love than me. On my 14th birthday, I got a stained tissue paper with Happy B-Day written with a blue pen. But later that year, when Hazel turned 3, she got a full fondant-style dog cake with her name written in cursive, paired with a professional photo shoot to capture her entering womanhood. 3 is meant to be 21 in dog years. And when Hazel learned to sit for the first time, my mom threw a literal party and plastered her face all over Facebook. Meanwhile, I get wailed on for not proving that I walk 10K steps a day. And before Hazel came around, it's not like my mom was the dream mom either. She used to treat me the exact same way, except I was able to forgive her because I thought it was just anger issues. But when I saw the contrast between me and Hazel, that's when I realized that she wasn't an impatient person. She just effing hated me, lol. And honestly, I was too scared to even bring it up, because whenever I had a friend over who mentioned it, my mom would scream at me afterwards and force me to text them a paragraph of horrible things. One time she made me tell my friend that I was happy his dad died, because at least he won't have to deal with his BS anymore. And as if that wasn't bad enough, I would then have to get on my knees and kneel in rice and apologize to Hazel until she licked my face, a supposed sign of forgiveness. After this happened twice in a row, rumors around school went around that I was a psycho furry lover, so I pretty much gave up on making friends after that. I ended up moving out as soon as I turned 18, and it honestly took until the end of my sophomore year until I was fully adjusted to the normal world, a world that doesn't treat me as a peasant, that is. I remember being at a cafe by myself, and there was an artsy lady sitting beside me with one of those crusty white dogs that are always called Coco. It started barking at me, and I instinctively put my hand near its mouth to let it bite me, as per my mom's usual procedure. And instead of pulling my hand into its mouth and smiling, she looked at me like I was crazy and kept the dog on her lead. That was when I realized how effing psycho my mom really was. It's for this reason that when she called me 3 years later asking to reconnect, I did. Because even though she permanently ruined the way my brain works and my perspective on the world forever, she was struggling. She had arthritis, and I figured that she probably had no friends left to help. So for the first time in years, I went to her house. I didn't want any trouble, so I brought dog treats to accompany a check of $8,000 for her medical bills. I was sort of hoping Hazel would be dead by this point, but I guess my mom treated her well because she somehow still looked like a puppy. But things were different. Instead of letting her attack me when she felt angsty, I just ignored her. And when my mom pulled out the rice for me to kneel in and apologize for abandoning her, I simply refused. At first my mom seemed surprised, but by the end of the visit, she was struggling to hold back her anger. It was obvious by the harsh eyebrow furrow and clenched white fists. But for the first time, I didn't care. And I guess I had really earned her respect because a few days after I left, she called asking if I was working in 2 weeks. Because at the time, I worked in airport security. I was basically one of the people who pat you down and make sure you don't have anything illegal. So I figured she was asking because she was traveling and wanted to bring me a gift or something. So I told her yes, and coincidentally her flight time aligned perfectly with my work roster for that week. She was passing through the detector when it happened. It started beeping like crazy, and we both decided it was best, in terms of comfortability, if I did the procedural check. We even joked about her becoming an illegal mule. It was funny, until 5 seconds later. My hands were on her waist, and there was a huge smile on my face when she started shouting, "Help, help, this man is groping me!" I was confused, but chuckled anyway because I swear I thought she was pranking me, until she continued. "He just grabbed my A, and chest, please help, this man is disgusting." Suddenly, all eyes were on me. I stopped in my tracks and held my hands up in the air to show everyone I was innocent. And suddenly, my manager turned around and punched me. When I looked around, all I saw was a flood of photo cameras, so I threw my reflective vest onto the floor and ran to my car. But by the time I speed drove home, I saw it was too late. There were already dozens of clips of me uploaded to Instagram and TikTok with a collective of 400,000 views. All the comments were calling me a disgusting pig who should rot in prison. My life was over, and my mother was 100% to blame. A week passed with no response from the airport. I tried not to get my hopes up, but part of me kept checking my email every few hours anyway. Tessa had been amazing, letting me crash in her spare room while I figured out my next steps. She never pressured me about finding my own place or getting a job. Instead, she made extra coffee in the mornings and left job listings circled in red marker on the kitchen table. "Take your time," she'd say, the morning light catching in her auburn hair. Healing isn't linear. I was scrolling through Indeed.com when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. My thumb hovered over the decline button. These days, unknown numbers usually meant reporters or internet sleuths who'd somehow tracked me down. "You should answer," Tessa said, noticing my hesitation. Could be about a job. I swiped to accept, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Hello? Is this the airport groper?" A female voice laughed. "Just kidding. It's Diane from scheduling at the airport." My stomach tightened into a painful knot. "How did you get my number?" "Greg gave it to me. Don't worry. I'm not calling to harass you. Actually, I wanted to tell you something important." I put the phone on speaker so Tessa could hear, her eyes widening as she leaned closer. "Your mother called me yesterday. Said she was an old family friend of yours and wanted to catch up. Asked if I knew where you were staying. I told her to pound sand." "Thank you," I said, relief washing over me like cool water. "There's more. She's been calling other staff too, and she came to the airport yesterday, talking to anyone who would listen about her traumatic experience and how the airport was harboring a predator by not pressing charges against you. But I was suspended pending investigation," I said, the words bitter on my tongue. "She doesn't care about facts. She's building a narrative." After hanging up, I sat in silence, processing. My mother wasn't just trying to ruin my reputation. She was systematically destroying any chance I had of rebuilding my life. "She won't stop," I said to Tessa, my voice barely above a whisper. "This is just the beginning." "Then we need to be proactive," Tessa replied, determination flashing in her eyes. "Document everything. Build your own case." That afternoon, I created a timeline of everything that had happened, starting with my childhood. It was physically painful typing out some of the memories, kneeling on rice, the forced apologies to Hazel, the isolation. But seeing it all laid out chronologically, I recognized the pattern of escalation. My phone pinged with an email notification. It was from someone named Sharon Bailey in the airport's legal department. "We've received your materials and are reviewing them internally. This is not an admission of liability or wrongdoing on the airport's part. Please do not contact any current employees while this matter is under review." It wasn't much, but it was something. They were at least looking at the evidence. The next morning, Tessa shook my shoulder, her fingers cold with fear. "Someone's been in the yard," she whispered. "The garden gate was open when I went to get the newspaper. We checked the security camera Tessa had installed. The footage showed a figure in a hooded jacket entering the yard at 3:17 a.m., moving toward the house, then apparently changing their mind and leaving. Could be just a random trespasser," I said, not believing it myself. "Or your mother," Tessa replied. "I'm calling a locksmith to change the locks today." While Tessa made the call, I checked my email. There was a message from an unfamiliar address, hazel.loves.u@gmail.com. Communication. The subject line read, "Missing my boy." My hands trembled as I opened it. There was no text, just an image attachment. I clicked it. It was a photo of me sleeping, taken through Tessa's guest room window last night. I dropped my phone like it had burned me, my stomach lurching violently. "Tessa!" She came running, saw the email, and immediately called the police. They arrived 30 minutes later, took statements, and looked at the photo. "Unfortunately, there's not much we can do without proof of who took it," the officer said, "but we'll increase patrols in the area." After they left, Tessa called the locksmith again and upgraded to a full security system installation. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house, every passing car headlight made me jolt upright, my heart racing. Around 2 a.m., my phone lit up with a text from another unknown number. Hazel misses her brother. Don't you miss kneeling for her? I blocked the number immediately, but the damage was done. Sleep was impossible now, the darkness pressing in from all sides. The next day, I checked my email to find a message from a local news reporter. I'm working on a story about airport security violations and would like to get your side of the story regarding the incident on April 12th. Your mother has provided extensive details about her experience, but journalistic integrity requires hearing from all parties involved. I showed Tessa, who shook her head. Don't respond. It's a trap. But if I don't tell my side, they've already decided what story they're telling. Your mother's made sure of that. Later that day, my phone rang. Greg from the airport, his voice hushed as if he was hiding in a supply closet. Just wanted to give you a heads up, he said. Your mother came to the airport again yesterday. This time she had a lawyer with her. They're threatening to sue the airport for emotional distress unless they publicly condemn you and implement new security protocols. What kind of protocols? I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. That's the weird part. She wants all security staff to wear body cameras that can't be turned off, and she specifically asked that all footage of her incident be preserved as evidence. I frowned, the pieces clicking together. But that would show I didn't do anything wrong. Exactly. It doesn't make sense unless she's trying to get access to the security footage to delete it. I finished his thought. Bingo. The airport has footage from that day, but it's been restricted as part of the internal investigation. Only the legal team can access it now. I immediately emailed Sharon Bailey. I have reason to believe my mother is trying to gain access to security footage from April 12th to destroy evidence. Please ensure all footage is secured. Her response came quickly. All evidence is being preserved. We take these allegations seriously. When Tessa returned, I told her about the body camera demand. She's getting desperate, Tessa said. That's good and bad. Good because desperate people make mistakes. Bad because desperate people are unpredictable. The next day, my old landlord Vince called. Someone broke into your old apartment, he said. The new tenant called the cops. Nothing was stolen, but they went through all the drawers and closets. Did they catch who did it? I asked, my mouth suddenly dry. No, but the tenant said it was an older woman with a small white dog. Said she claimed to be your mother looking for your medication. My blood ran cold. Vince, I was never on medication. Yeah, I figured it was BS. Just thought you should know. I added this to my timeline. The pattern was clear now. My mother was building a narrative that I was mentally unstable, violent, and dangerous. She was creating a paper trail to support her story. That afternoon, I received another email from Sharon Bailey. Our investigation has uncovered concerning information. Can you come to the airport administrative offices tomorrow at 10 a.m.? Please enter through the staff entrance on the east side to avoid the main terminal. I showed Tessa, who insisted on coming with me. I don't trust this. It could be another trap. Or it could be my chance to clear my name, I said, hope fluttering in my chest for the first time in weeks. We compromised. She'd drive me and wait in the car. If I didn't text her every 15 minutes, she'd call the police. The next morning, we arrived at the airport staff entrance at 9:45. My hands were sweating as I approached the security desk, my mouth so dry I could barely speak. I have a meeting with Sharon Bailey, I told the guard. He checked his list. ID, please. I handed over my driver's license, heart pounding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. What if my mother had somehow gotten to security, told them I was dangerous? Go ahead, he said, handing back my ID. Take the elevator to the third floor, room 312. The elevator ride felt eternal. When I reached room 312, I hesitated before knocking, my knuckles hovering inches from the door. A woman in her 50s with short gray hair opened the door. You must be our 10 o'clock. Come in. Inside, 3 people sat at a conference table. Sharon Bailey, a man in a suit I didn't recognize, and Greg, who looked uncomfortable in business casual attire. Thank you for coming, Sharon said. This is Thomas Reeves, our head of legal, and you know Greg. Greg nodded at me but didn't smile. We've been reviewing the security footage from April 12th, Sharon continued, sliding a manila folder across the polished table, and we've made some discoveries. Thomas slid a folder across the table. Before we discuss those, we need you to sign this non-disclosure agreement. What we're about to show you cannot leave this room. I hesitated, suspicion flaring. I should have a lawyer review this. You're welcome to, Thomas said. But we're trying to help you. The NDA protects the airport, not your mother. I read through the document carefully. It prevented me from discussing the security footage publicly without the airport's permission. I signed it. Sharon turned a laptop toward me. This is the complete footage from the incident. We've enhanced the audio. The video showed exactly what I remembered. My mother going through security, the detector beeping, me conducting the standard pat-down, then her outburst. But with the enhanced audio, something new was clear. Just before she started screaming, she whispered something, her lips barely moving. Can you isolate that? I asked, leaning forward. Thomas nodded to Sharon, who adjusted the settings and replayed the moment. My mother's whisper became clear. This is for abandoning me, you ungrateful child. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach, the air leaving my lungs in a rush. Play it again, I demanded, needing to be sure. They replayed it 3 times. Each time, the words were unmistakable. There's more, Greg said, speaking for the first time. We pulled additional footage from other cameras. The next clip showed my mother arriving at the airport 2 hours before her flight, unusual for domestic travel. She went to the bathroom and stayed there for 45 minutes. When she emerged, she went directly to a gift shop and purchased a small metal souvenir, a miniature Statue of Liberty. She bought something metallic right before going through security, I said, understanding dawning. Exactly, Sharon nodded. She deliberately set off the detector. The final clip showed my mother after the incident. While everyone was focused on me, she slipped the souvenir into a trash can near the security checkpoint. We retrieved it, Thomas said. It's been logged as evidence. Evidence of what? I asked, hardly daring to hope. Potentially filing a false report, Sharon replied, and possibly defamation. What does this mean for me? I asked. Thomas cleared his throat. The airport is prepared to issue a statement clearing you of any wrongdoing. We can't give you your job back. Too much public attention now, but we can provide severance pay and a positive reference. And my mother? I asked. That's more complicated, Thomas said. We could pursue charges for filing a false report, but that would mean a public trial where all this comes out. More media attention, more scrutiny for you. What's the alternative? I asked. We send her a cease and desist letter. Make it clear we have evidence of her deception. Demand she stop making false claims about the airport and its former employees. If she continues, then we pursue legal action. I considered it. A public trial would clear my name, but at what cost? More viral videos, more strangers dissecting my life, more trauma. Send the letter, I decided. I just want this to stop. After the meeting, I texted Tessa that I was on my way out. As I walked through the staff corridor toward the exit, I heard a familiar voice around the corner. I'm telling you, he's dangerous. I have proof he's been stalking me. My mother. Here. Now I froze, then quickly ducked into an empty office, leaving the door cracked to listen. Mrs. Winters, a male voice responded. Thomas Reeves. We've reviewed your claims thoroughly. I suggest you speak with a lawyer before making any further statements. Are you threatening me? My mother's voice rose. After what your employee did to me? I'm advising you that making false statements can have serious legal consequences, Thomas replied. False? I have witnesses. I have bruises, she sputtered. You have fabricated evidence, Thomas said calmly, and we have proof of that fabrication. Now, I'll have security escort you out. This isn't over, my mother shouted. He's manipulated you just like he manipulates everyone. I heard footsteps moving away, then silence. I waited 5 minutes before slipping out and hurrying to Tessa's car, constantly looking over my shoulder. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said as I climbed in. Close enough, I replied, and told her everything. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. The airport had my back. They had evidence. I felt like the truth might actually matter for once in my life. The next morning, I woke to a text from Greg. Letter delivered to your mother yesterday afternoon. afternoon. Thought you should know. I showed Tessa over breakfast. Maybe now she'll back off, I said. Don't count on it, Tessa warned. Narcissists don't give up easily when their image is threatened. She was right. That afternoon, my phone exploded with notifications. Someone had created a Facebook page called Justice for Elaine with my photo and the airport video. The description read, "The airport is covering up for him. Help spread the truth." The page already had over 1,000 followers. I immediately called Sharon Bailey, who sighed heavily when I told her. "We anticipated something like this," she said. "We're preparing our statement now. In the meantime, document everything, but don't engage." The next day, local news picked up the story. Airport assault victim claims cover-up. The reporter mentioned sources close to the investigation claiming evidence had been tampered with. My mother was escalating, trying to control the narrative before the airport could release their statement. Then came the most disturbing development yet. I received an email from my high school email account, one I hadn't used in years. The subject line read, "Remember me?" The email contained a single video attachment. With shaking hands, I pressed play. It showed me at age 15, kneeling on rice in our kitchen, tears streaming down my face as I apologized to Hazel. My mother's voice off camera. "Say it like you mean it or you'll stay there all night." I slammed my laptop shut. How did she still have this? Why had she kept it all these years? A text followed moments later from an unknown number. "I have more. So many more. Stop working with the airport or everyone sees them." I showed Tessa, who immediately called Thomas Reeves. He arrived at her house an hour later with Sharon Bailey, both looking grim but determined. "This is blackmail," Thomas said after viewing the video and text. "We can add that to potential charges. But if I don't do what she wants, she'll release humiliating videos of me," I said, shame burning in my chest. "That's her goal, to make you feel powerless again," Sharon replied. "But consider this. If those videos get out, they don't show you doing anything wrong. They show her abusing a child." She was right. The videos weren't evidence against me. They were evidence against her. "We release our statement tomorrow," Thomas said. "It will clearly state that our investigation found no wrongdoing on your part and that we have evidence the allegations were fabricated. We won't mention your mother by name, but it will be clear." After they left, I sat with Tessa on her porch, watching the sunset. The golden light bathed the neighborhood in a warm glow, making even the ordinary houses look magical. A gentle breeze carried the scent of someone's barbecue from down the street. "What happens after their statement?" I asked, tracing the condensation on my glass of iced tea. "She won't just disappear." "No," Tessa agreed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "But each time she escalates, she reveals more of herself. The airport videos, the childhood videos. She's building your case for you." "My case?" I asked, the concept foreign after years of powerlessness. "Against her. For the abuse. For the defamation. For all of it. I hadn't considered that possibility. That all this evidence might someday be used against her. That I might actually get justice." The next morning, the airport released their statement. "After thorough investigation of the April 12th incident, including review of security footage and witness statements, we have found no evidence of inappropriate conduct by our former employee. We have, however, uncovered evidence suggesting the allegations were deliberately fabricated. We are cooperating with authorities on this matter and will have no further comment at this time." My mother's response came within hours. The Justice for Elaine page posted a lengthy screed claiming the airport was covering up for me because I had dirt on management. She included screenshots of texts I'd supposedly sent her apologizing for the incident. The forgery is obvious to anyone who knew me, but something had changed. The comments weren't all supportive anymore. People were asking questions, poking holes in the story. Some pointed out inconsistencies in her narrative. Others noted that the airport wouldn't risk a lawsuit if they weren't confident in their evidence. That evening, Greg called again. "Your mother showed up at the airport demanding to speak to the CEO," he said, his voice tight with stress. "Security escorted her out. She was screaming that she'd burn this place to the ground before letting them protect you." "Was she arrested?" I asked, pacing Tessa's living room, the hardwood cool beneath my bare feet. "No, but she's been banned from the premises. If she returns, she'll be arrested for trespassing." The next day, Sharon Bailey called to tell me that a reporter from the local newspaper wanted to interview me. "His name is Willie Chen," she said. "He's been investigating your mother's claims and found some inconsistencies. He wants your side. Can I trust him?" I asked, anxiety knotting in my chest. "I've worked with him before. He's thorough and fair, but it's your decision." I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop near Tessa's house. Willie was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with glasses and a serious expression. "Thank you for meeting me," he said after we'd ordered coffee. "I've been looking into this story for 2 weeks now, and things aren't adding up." "What kind of things?" I asked, warming my hands on the ceramic mug. "For starters, your mother has given 3 different versions of what happened at the airport. In the first, you groped her during the pat-down. In the second, you whispered inappropriate comments. In the third, you'd been harassing her for weeks, and the airport was the culmination." I nodded. "None of those are true." "I believe you," Willie said, surprising me with his directness. "Because I also found something interesting. This isn't the first time your mother has made accusations like this." He slid a folder across the table. Inside were printouts of news articles from 15 years ago, when I was still a child. The headlines made my stomach drop. "Local woman claims assault by grocery store employee. Department store settles harassment claim. Woman sues restaurant for traumatic experience." In each case, my mother had claimed inappropriate touching or comments by male employees. Each time, the business had settled quietly to avoid publicity. "This was her pattern," Willie said. "Long before you." I stared at the articles, a strange sense of relief washing over me. It wasn't just me. It was never just me. "I'd like to tell your story," Willie continued. "The full story. Your childhood. The airport. Everything. Why would you believe me when no one else did?" I asked, studying his face for any sign of deception. "Because evidence matters to me," he replied simply. "And your mother's story doesn't hold up under scrutiny." I thought about it, weighing the risks against the potential freedom of truth. "Okay," I said finally, "but I need to show you something first." I pulled out my phone and played the childhood video my mother had sent. Willie watched in silence, his expression darkening. "She sent this as blackmail," I explained, "to keep me quiet." Willie shook his head. "She doesn't understand how evidence works, does she? This doesn't incriminate you. It incriminates her." As I left the coffee shop, I felt lighter somehow. For years, I'd carried the weight of my mother's abuse alone. Now others would know the truth. The next day, Willie called with an update. "I reached out to your mother for comment," he said. Her response was, "Interesting." "What did she say?" I asked, my fingers tightening around the phone. "First, she threatened to sue the paper. Then she claimed you'd manipulated me. Finally, she offered an exclusive interview to tell the real story about her troubled son." "Are you going to interview her?" I asked, my stomach churning with anxiety. "Absolutely. I want to give her every opportunity to respond. That's fair journalism." "What if she convinces you? What if she's so convincing you end up believing her instead of me?" I asked, voicing my deepest fear. Willie was quiet for a moment. "That's not how this works. I follow the evidence, not the most persuasive storyteller. And right now, all the evidence supports your account." That night, as Tessa and I were watching TV, headlights swept across the living room wall. A car had pulled into the driveway. "Are you expecting someone?" I asked, sitting up straight. Tessa shook her head, already moving toward the window. She peeked through the blinds, then stepped back quickly. "It's your mother," she whispered, "and she's not alone." I peered through the blinds. My mother stood in the driveway, illuminated by the porch light. Beside her was a tall man with an official-looking badge clipped to his belt. Behind them, a news van was pulling up to the curb. "She brought a reporter," I whispered. "And is that a social worker?" Tessa finished. "From Adult Protective Services." My stomach dropped. "She's trying to make it look like I'm not competent to make my own decisions." The doorbell rang. Tessa straightened her shoulders. "I'll handle this," she said. "Stay back, but within earshot." I positioned myself in the hallway, just out of sight, but where I could hear everything. Tessa opened the door, blocking the entrance with her body. "Elaine," she said coolly, "this is private property." "I'm here on official business," my mother replied. "This is Mr. Mr. Alvarez from Adult Protective Services. I filed a report about my son's deteriorating mental state. And the news van? Tessa asked. I'm Paisley Wright from Channel 8 News, a woman's voice chimed in. We're doing a story on families affected by mental health crises. No cameras on my property, Tessa stated firmly. And no, you may not come in without a warrant. Ma'am, I just need to verify your nephew's well-being, Mr. Alvarez said. It's standard procedure when we receive reports of what exactly? Tessa challenged. What specifically has been alleged? There was an awkward pause before my mother jumped in, her voice rising with practiced distress. He's been having episodes, delusions, paranoia. He thinks I set him up at the airport when he's the one who— Mr. Alvarez, Tessa interrupted. I have extensive documentation of Elaine's pattern of false accusations and psychological abuse. I also have security footage of her trespassing on this property. If you'd like to come back with proper authorization, we'll cooperate fully. But this media circus ends now. I heard shuffling, then my mother's voice rising. He's in there. He needs help. He's being manipulated by her. Mrs. Winters, please lower your voice, Mr. Alvarez said. This isn't helping your case. My case? My mother's voice cracked with indignation. My son is mentally ill. He's dangerous. I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped into view, keeping a safe distance from the door. I'm right here, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. And I'm fine. Mr. Alvarez looked me over. Sir, would you be willing to speak with me privately? Not tonight, I replied. And not with cameras present. You can contact my attorney tomorrow. My mother's face contorted with rage, the mask of concern slipping for just an instant. You see? He's refusing help. This is exactly what I was talking about. The reporter, Paisley, was watching with increasing interest. Mrs. Winters, she said slowly, you told us this was a wellness check for a son in crisis. You didn't mention any dispute about the airport incident. My mother faltered for just a second before recovering. It's all connected. His behavior at the airport was the first public sign of his breakdown. Interesting, Paisley replied. Because I just received a text from my producer. Willie Chen from the Tribune reached out to our newsroom with some compelling evidence that contradicts your version of events. The color drained from my mother's face. Willie Chen is biased. He's being thorough, Paisley finished. And now I'm wondering if I should be too. She turned to her cameraman. Pack it up, Darren. I think we need to revisit this story from a different angle. As they headed back to their van, my mother stood frozen in disbelief, her carefully orchestrated plan crumbling. Mr. Alvarez cleared his throat. I'll make a note that the subject appears to be in good health and of sound mind. Mrs. Winters, I'll need to speak with you about the nature of your report. Tessa closed the door as they walked away, my mother's protests fading into the night. The next morning, Willie called with news that made my heart race. Your mother gave me an interview yesterday, he said. It was revealing. What did she say? I asked, pacing nervously across Tessa's kitchen, the morning sunlight streaming through the windows. Many things that don't add up, but here's what's important. She brought what she claimed was your psychiatric file. Said it proved you had a history of delusions and violent tendencies. My blood ran cold. I've never seen a psychiatrist in my life. I know, because I checked with the doctor whose name was on the letterhead. He's never heard of you. The file is a forgery. I exhaled slowly. She's fabricating medical records now. Yes, and that's a felony, Willie replied. I've contacted the medical board and the police. They're investigating. My mother had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. She'd committed actual fraud. Later that day, Sharon Bailey called. The airport has been contacted by the police regarding your mother's activities, she said. We've provided them with all our evidence. I thought you should know. Thank you, I managed, for everything. There's something else, she added. We've been contacted by 3 other businesses where your mother filed similar complaints years ago. They're reopening their investigations in light of recent events. The walls were closing in on my mother's carefully constructed reality. 2 days later, Willie's article was published. The headline read, Airport Incident, a pattern of false accusations and family abuse. The article detailed not just the airport incident, but my mother's history of similar accusations against businesses, forged medical records, and the childhood abuse. Willie had interviewed former teachers who had suspected something was wrong, but never had enough evidence to act. He'd found neighbors who remembered the strange way my mother treated me compared to her dog. Most importantly, he'd uncovered 2 previous settlements my mother had received from businesses, money she'd used to renovate her house and take luxury vacations while claiming financial hardship. The public reaction was immediate. The comment section filled with messages of support for me and condemnation of my mother. The Justice for Elaine page disappeared overnight. My inbox flooded with messages from people sharing similar stories of parental abuse. That afternoon, Greg called. The airport wants to offer you your job back. Different department, away from the public. Better pay too. I thought about it. I appreciate that, but I think I need a clean break. I get it. The offer stands if you change your mind. For the first time since the airport incident, maybe for the first time in my life, I felt like I had choices. Real choices that weren't reactions to my mother's manipulation. The next morning, Detective Jules Morales from the fraud division showed up at Tessa's door. We've opened an investigation into Elaine Winters for multiple counts of fraud, filing false reports, and forgery of medical documents, he explained. We'll need a formal statement from you. I spent 3 hours going through everything. My childhood, the airport setup, the fake texts, the forged medical records. Based on the evidence we've gathered so far, we'll be bringing her in for questioning today, he said as he prepared to leave. I should warn you, this type of case can take time to prosecute. Are you prepared for that? I nodded. I've been dealing with her my whole life. I can handle a few more months. My mother's case moved slowly through the legal system. She hired an expensive lawyer who managed to get some charges reduced, but the core fraud and false reporting charges remained. 6 months after the airport incident, I was accepted to finish my computer science degree at a state university about an hour from Tessa's house. I found a small studio apartment nearby and a part-time job at a local electronics store. One day, I was walking home from class when I spotted a small white dog tied up outside a coffee shop. It wasn't Hazel. This dog was scruffier, with patches of brown on its face, but something about its patient waiting triggered a memory. I approached slowly, keeping a respectful distance. The dog looked at me curiously, but didn't bark, its tail wagging slightly. I didn't offer my hand to be bitten. I didn't kneel down. I just nodded at it, acknowledging its existence without expectation or fear. That's Rex, a voice said behind me. A woman about my age had emerged from the coffee shop with 2 cups. He's friendly if you want to pet him. That's okay, I replied, returning her smile. I was just saying hello. The preliminary hearing for my mother's case was scheduled for the following month. My testimony would be required. Tessa promised to be there for support. Willie would cover it for the paper. It wouldn't be easy, but I wasn't facing it alone. That night, I sat on my small balcony, watching the sunset. My phone buzzed with a text from Detective Morales. Thought you should know. Your mother's dog's been adopted by a family with 3 kids. They renamed her Daisy. She's doing well. I smiled, feeling an unexpected weight lift from my shoulders. Hazel, now Daisy, had a fresh start too, free from the toxic environment we'd both endured. My life wasn't perfect. I still jumped at unexpected sounds. I still had nightmares about kneeling on rice. I still checked over my shoulder when walking alone at night. But I was building something that was truly mine, a life defined by my choices, not my mother's manipulation. The next morning, I walked to class under a clear blue sky. A dog barked in the distance, the sound no longer triggering panic. I kept walking, hands in my pockets, face turned toward the sun, taking one step at a time into a future that, for the first time, felt like it might actually belong to me.